Shabbat Shalom, dear congregation. Thank you all for being here. It's very uplifting looking out and seeing all of your faces. Parsha ki Tisa, meaning when you take, comes from the opening statement of the Parsha and refers to the half shekel contribution of each adult male over the age of 20 to the tabernacle. It was used actually as a way to perform a census without counting people. This is considered a bad omen in Jewish teaching, to count people. So we count objects instead. As you may be aware, our congregation, and I mentioned this earlier, reads Torah according to the triennial cycle, which means that the play-by-play that I provided earlier in the service would not give the full picture of the multitude of significant events that take place in this week's Parsha. Triennial year 2, which we read today, is a central section and specifically recounts the dramatic incident of the golden calf and the giving of the second set of tablets a second chance. The third portion, read in year 3, deals with the construction and decoration of the tabernacle. One of the central moments of Ki Tisa, which we read today, is when Moses ascends Mount Sinai to receive the tablets of the law. The people, panicking in his absence, remove their gold jewelry to make an idol and form a golden calf and dance with it. God, who is consumed with anger over the event, tells Moses to go back down to the people. He doesn't want Moses to see his anger. So Moses goes back down to the people, and on his way down in his anger, as I mentioned earlier and as we read today, smashes the tablets, showing a public display of anger and violence. Feeling remorse for his actions, he then returns to the mountain to plead with God to forgive the people. Eventually, God listens to Moses' plea and forgives the people. Moses can then return with a second set of tablets. His encounter with the Holy One leaves him with a radiant face, having been the only human to have seen the face of God. It's interesting to note that the word karnaim, referred to as rays of light illuminating his face, was translated with the word horns in alternate versions of translations, which the word karnaim also means, but it was a mistranslation, and it further led to claims that the Jewish people had horns. Probably better to read the Torah in the original Hebrew. Moses, as a leader, he takes his role to heart, as most of our leadership does. He has worked tirelessly to convince Pharaoh to release the people, to convince his own people that the uncertainty of freedom is better than the security of slavery, to convince them to believe in one God. And his frustration with the lack of commitment and ongoing stress of his role provokes his wrath, which he expresses publicly. He expresses his anger by breaking the tablets, and he later expresses frustration when he hits the stone to draw water instead of simply talking to the stone as God requested. His punishment for the second display of anger is a serious one, and he will be unable to enter the promised land. According to Maimonides, the emotion of anger is always the wrong response. We may not be able to help from feeling anger, but we have to be aware that while it lasts, we are in the grip of an emotion that we cannot control, which makes anger so dangerous. And Maimonides states, anger is an extremely bad attitude, and one should distance itself from it by going to the other extreme. One should train oneself not to get angry, even about something to which anger might be an appropriate response. It's interesting to note that the Torah says that we are allowed to pretend to be angry, to show how we feel about something and to get people to take something seriously, but it has to be controlled. But to actually be angry, the ancient sages say that one who yields anger is as if he has worshipped idols. They also said that whoever yields to anger If he is wise, his wisdom deserts him. If he is a prophet, his prophecy leaves him. Therefore, they have instructed us to keep far from anger, training ourselves to stay calm even in the face of provocation. That is the right way. God knows today there is a lot that it's provoking us, and we have to take a deep breath and think about how we respond. The third part of the Parsha, which is read in year 3 of the triennial cycle, takes a seemingly disconnected track from the golden calf story, recounting the story of Bezalel and Oliab, 2 artisans chosen by God to lead the construction of the tabernacle. In Exodus 31, 1-6, we read how God fills Bezalel and Oholiab with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, understanding, and knowledge in all kinds of crafts to create the sacred vessels and furnishings of the tabernacle. We must, however, note that nothing in the Torah is random or disconnected, and upon greater investigation, these 2 seemingly disconnected events, completely opposed if you think about it, one is about aesthetics and one is about anger, they illustrate the problem. Publicly displaying anger, a natural human response, and a remedy or solution to aid humanity in managing and rewiring our reaction response to anger through beauty and a calming environment. I read an interesting Facebook post yesterday that helped me connect the dots between the episode about extreme anger and the other part of the Parsha about extreme beauty. Empirical studies suggest that art improves health and well-being. We consider the idea that the positive emotions from the aesthetic experience affect mood and indirectly promote health. Recent studies suggest that the arts promote health and psychological well-being and offer a therapeutic tool for many individuals. You certainly may have heard about art therapy to deal with anxiety. Neuroimaging studies highlighted an immediate emotional response to artworks rated as beautiful, indicating higher reward value. Several studies show benefits of art experience, such as improvement of memory, lower stress levels, and positive social impact. Aesthetic experiences also affect our learning abilities. This could imply that the act of beautification of the temple was more than simply an aesthetic embellishment, but a purposeful act to uplift the experience of worship and promote spirituality and focus. And as I mentioned earlier when evoking Maimonides, distancing oneself from anger is going to the other extreme, the tranquility and the serenity that comes from a beautiful environment. We need to create a mood in our personal lives, in the workplace, and in our worship that is conducive to creating calm and peace. Every action we take to practice our faith should be an opportunity to elevate the spiritual experience, to make Kiddush from a beautiful cup, not a styrofoam cup, covering the Torah in a beautiful velvet mantle, and using special candlesticks on Shabbat, and making sure our synagogue is a beautiful spiritual home. The renovation project that we have undertaken follows the same tradition of elevating the mitzvah. And in the same way, building the tabernacle sought to push our people towards a gentler world and an antidote to anger, hatred, and violent emotions. As we prepare all of the components of our new home, today's Parsha reminds us to be kinder to each other, more patient, and to take the time to elevate our lives with things of beauty that encourage us to appreciate all of God's creation. And with this, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.